Corley Moore coming at you. Wanted to talk very briefly before the scrap starts tonight. And if you know me, you know that I love the vigilantes. I love the like-minded souls, and I'm always looking for ways that we can have more interaction. One of the things that every vigilante says when they join is they're looking to connect with those like-minded souls. They're looking to connect with other vigilantes and people who feel the way they feel. And so I'm constantly looking for ways to make that happen. So far, I love Patreon. I love Patreon for bringing us together, but it hasn't created that the ability to share information and things the way I wanted. But one thing we did discover was that Discord is integrated into Patreon. So we've been working for the last couple weeks to launch a Discord server where the vigilantes can get together and hang out. Now, I'll be the first person to say I am not a tech guru. I'm much better at forcing doors and hook and sealing. I'm better at destroying stuff than I am at using technology. But that being said, Discord has so many options that look like they could be phenomenal for the vigilantes and for our growth and for the fellowship and the camaraderie that we want to share. It's got chat rooms that you can post in, separated by category, where we can have great discussions. It's got voice channels you can jump in and have voice discussions with people at the drop of a hat without needing to start a Zoom call or anything. You just drop in and drop out. You can share screens. We have plans. People have plans to share classes that they've built so they can get feedback before they go and teach those classes. I mean, there's so much that could be used for this Discord server, and we're just scratching the surface. So get in, come be a part of it, man. It looks to be an incredible platform, and if you want to be a part of it, head over to patreon.com/thevigilantes. Become a part, man. If you're not a vigilante, why not? $5 a month. You can't even afford a fancy coffee nowadays for $5. So $5 a month, you're a member of the like-minded souls. So come be a part. Looking forward to seeing and talking to you in the Discord. Stay safe.
Introducing the Affordable Bailout Prop, another innovative training solution by Affordable Drill Towers. The Affordable Bailout Prop is a durable and affordable training tool that allows firefighters to enhance their skills with real-world training in your parking lot or on your apparatus floor. Most fire departments only require annual PSS qualification, which isn't enough to develop muscle memory. When seconds count, you must be able to deploy your PSS and quickly escape by seating your hook in the sill or using a remote anchor point. With an overall height under 12 feet, a 5x7 footprint, and 12-inch heavy-duty swivel casters with double locks, the Affordable Bailout Prop can be easily moved between your parking lot and apparatus floor. Constructed of pressure-treated 4x4s, the window frame dimensions mimic the Denver drill window prop with a sill height of almost 8 feet, featuring a pressure-treated 2x12 sill. The rappel wall is made of 8 2x10s screwed into batten boards. All parts, including the windowsill and rappel wall, are designed to be easily replaceable if they become worn. A vertical ladder provides access to the deck, which is approximately 4 foot above ground level. In addition to window and ladder bailout drills, you can also train on removing victims through the window, whether handing the victim to another firefighter on the ladder or using the ladder as a high point. Don't stop with rescue drills. Consider advancing a hose line through the window and learn methods to overcome the challenges. Or hone the mechanics of VES, Vent Enter Search. The uses are endless and up to your imagination, creating an enormous value. With its inspiration coming from the events of FDNY's Black Sunday, Affordable Drill Towers donates 10% of all proceeds from the Affordable Bailout Prop to the Lieutenant Joseph P. DiBernardo Memorial Foundation. The Affordable Bailout Prop is available as a kit that you assemble, or fully assembled, where we train you how to assemble in the future. Elevate your training regimen with the Affordable Bailout Prop, setting a new standard in fire department training excellence. Reach us at 84455 Towers or info@affordabledrilltowers.com.
Corley Moore. It is Weekly Scrap number 269. My guest tonight is Dale Jenkins. He entered the Houston Fire Department in 1978. After the academy, he was assigned to Station 7, at the time the busiest station in the city. Over his 4 decades in the fire service, he worked on many rigs, many capacities. He spent 5 years in the safety officer position, overseeing 1/3 of the city of Houston. He retired after 41 years in the fire service, walking out of the same door he entered all those years ago. He is a passionate firefighter, and I am very excited for our conversation this evening. It is my pleasure to welcome Captain Dale Jenkins onto the scrap for episode number 269. Welcome, my brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'm very, very excited. Is there anything I missed? Anything in the intro you would like to add?
No, you hit it all.
Perfect. I love it. Audience, please get your questions primed and ready for Dale Jenkins, for myself. Sam is here. He will be grabbing your questions out of the chat. So, yeah, absolutely throw them at us and we'll get to it. So let me talk about those beautiful sponsors of the show, and then we'll get to scrapping. Let's lead off with the new one. When it comes to performance under pressure, you need equipment that won't let you down. That's where American-made Snap-Tight comes in. It's built tough for firefighters. Snap-Tight hose is engineered to perform under pressure. Plus, Snap-Tight hoses are easy to deploy and even easier to rely on, with unmatched heat resistance to abrasion and extreme temperatures. Here's the best part. They offer guaranteed shipping and 4-week lead times. Visit snaptighthose.com to learn more or find a distributor near you. Snap-Tight hose, reliable, durable, ready when you are. Of course, affordable drill towers, on a mission to bring you cost-effective and versatile training props, like the affordable bailout prop, which allows you to practice window bailouts, ladder bailouts, and ladder high-point rescues. Of course, they make the affordable standpipe prop, which you can roll into the classroom for standpipe theory and then roll it into the parking lot and pump realistic flows and pressures. From one of the best, with more than 60 drill towers installed, they make the affordable drill tower, which comes in several configurations and standard with a standpipe system. You can choose from 1 or 2 sets of stairs, integrated into your existing Connex boxes for multi-story access, or freestanding on a slab. All models are NFPA 1402 compliant and gain you ISO credit. The only thing that you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire training. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltower.com. Firefighter safety and accountability starts with being able to quickly find and identify individual firefighters operating on the fire ground. Identifier Safety combines the best in photoluminescent materials for durable firefighter identification solutions that can glow for up to 20 hours, no switches, no batteries, which means being able to rapidly identify firefighters by name, unit, or assignment, even under hot fire conditions. All specifically designed and tested for the rigors of the job. Be seen, on scene. Identifiersafety.com. And of course, I love Flame Decon. Make sure you use it, decon yourself. And with that being said, we got the sponsors done and we are ready to scrap. So here we go. My brother, you spent 41 years in the fire service, starting in 1978, walking out the door 2019. And I just want to kick it off and just kind of you go whatever direction you want to go, and I want to hear what you think of it, the fire service then, the fire service now.
All right. Back then, of course, we made lots and lots of fires, and so we had lots of opportunities. But the thing that the comparison to today, back in the old days, I mean, everything we did was based on overwhelming the fires. Case in point, first day I walked in Sevens, one of the first classes they gave me was, hey, as a first lineman riding the right side of the engine, we're first in on a fire. I pull 2 lines, 2.5 inch. And so my officers, and I followed this my entire career. My officers believed instead of pulling a big line, 2.5, which we made lots of big all wood houses burning back then, and the other crews would pull 2.5s, but they couldn't get to the second floor. So my officers believed in pulling 2.5 inch with it flowed 125 gallons a minute, and that we coordinated our attack. And so the crews that pulled a 2.5, they would flow if they had a fog nozzle 250. If they had a smooth bore, primarily was an inch and an eighth, so 265. But we had maneuverability, and back then, if you had a 2-story house, you got 4 engines, and so you could literally have 8 attack lines. 8 attack lines. Some were flowing around 1,000 gallons a minute, and we beat these fires into submission. And I know one of the reasons was because we would turn right around and make another one. So you had to knock them out quick, but picking up took more time. But we overwhelmed the fires. And what I've seen in the see, I saw it change. We didn't really know what was happening, but back in the late 80s, I was a truck chauffeur at Sevens, and we cut. That's all we did back in those days was cut holes. Okay. So we make big old balloon frames, and we get up there and we cut holes. And we noticed that we needed to start cutting bigger holes. We noticed we started having flashovers that we used to not. And but we didn't understand why the change was happening. We didn't understand. Case in point, when I came in, the captains would take you in, and they would tell you to hold up your water, and they'd want you to watch the smoke. And we didn't have air packs on every position, and if one was broke, the rule was nobody wore any. So we did lots of smoke eating, and I wasn't a smoke eater, I promise you. But the fires, they talked about the smoke burned more like diesel. And today's fires, the smoke burns more like gasoline. It's explosive. Back in those days, our biggest concern, the smoke, was carbon monoxide. Today, it's hydrogen cyanide and a whole host of other chemicals. Today, your flashovers happen somewhere, around 500 degrees. Back in those days, with carbon monoxide, it was around 1100. So the fires have become, they're not as many, but they become a lot more violent. But what I've seen happen, it's not like where we used to flow 250 gallons on them. The crews are starting to gate back. It's less water. It's like for a while we came up on GPM flow when we got away from 1.5 inches and went to 1.75 inches. I think when we transitioned in Houston, I think we were able to then pump 170, flow 170. But I was always taught, and always did, we always pumped high pressure. It kept the kinks out of the hose.
Sure.
And we were able to get in there and overwhelm the fire. But what I see happening with the new fires, even though they're more unpredictable and they're more violent whenever they light off, I see this idea of comfort coming in, and I don't understand it. In the old days, the only time we thought about comfort was when the fire was out and you got to take that hot gear off. But it's like comfort, we want less pressure. The GPM flows. Some crew, and I mean, I got some crews in Houston still pump high GPM, flow 220 on 1 3/4 inches.
Oh wow!
But it's the problem is you have less fires, so you have less opportunities to see how bad things can happen. But bad things can happen, and if you aren't ready, if you don't have the water at your nozzle when things suddenly turn bad, and when I'm talking about, I'm talking when suddenly you're covered up in solid fire. And flashover is technical. Flashover is just one way that you can be covered up in fire, and we know we can prevent a flashover. We can cool the environment. We can ventilate more effectively, but you can't predict and you can't prevent sudden catastrophic fire events like wind change, sealant failure, gasoline, propane, butane. The thing is, once you're suddenly in there and you're covered up in solid fire, your mask can melt in as little as 10 seconds off your face. And when your mask fails, well, we know what the outcome is, right?
Right.
And so you have to be, it's not one of these deals today where like it was in the old days. In the old days, if we needed more pressure, we could call for more pressure. Today, when things go bad, you don't have time. 10 seconds and it can be over with. So you can't call your EO to tell them to bump your pressure up to where maybe it should have been when you're suddenly covered up in fire. And honestly, you're not going to be doing that anyway. You're going to be trying to save yourself. And the thing is, you can pump more water to your nozzle. you don't have to use every bit of it. If it's too much pressure, you can gate it down. I know it disturbs the stream some. But if you take a smoothbore and you gate it down, it looks more like a Vindicator. You take a fog nozzle, you gate it down, you can't really tell. But the thing is, if it's there at your nozzle, if you're pumping adequate pressure to say flow 200, 220, and you're having trouble handling it, well, you can gate it down. But suddenly, whenever you're covered up in solid fire, hey, that adrenaline kicks in. You'll never notice you're flowing 220 GPM. That adrenaline kicks in, and now you've got something to work with. Now, I know smooth bores are a little bit different. Probably the GPM needs to be down a little bit. But the fires today are just so much. There's so much fewer of them, so you get less opportunities to see how bad things can happen. But I can tell you, especially the 5 years I was a safety officer, and I took it not to get less runs I took it to make more fires,
right?
And to have an opportunity for the first time in my career to see what goes on outside. Now, as a safety officer, sometimes I was rooftop safety, sometimes I was interior safety. But my whole career, either I was on a roof cutting holes or I was inside fighting fire. And so I never ever had time to see what happened outside. And I actually, in that 5-year time frame, I made 257 good working fires, and I got a lot of knowledge and wisdom that I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't been outside. And I know it sounds bad being outside, but again, I as a safety officer, I always look for where the guys were in the most danger, and that's where I planted myself. And I tried to fill voids. Like if there was a lack of slack pulling, I can pull some slack. And so the fires just don't give us the opportunities. And I believe that we kind of get complacent, thinking that every fire we make is the way all of them are going to be. And all of a sudden, 1 out of 100, it's not like that. And the difference between living and dying is, what are you going to do in the next 10 seconds? So, man, it just, the changes came so fast and caught us totally off guard. If I can I keep talking?
Always. Oh, dear brother. Yeah, it's the trap. You can.
Let me tell you what happened in Houston. I mean, like I said, if we got a 2-story, and we made lots of big all wood 2-stories made out of bull pine, balloon frame. And if we got a 2-story, we got 4 pumpers. And if we got 1-story, it was 3. In the mid 80s, say 85, 86, they came to us and said what we were doing. Oh, here's what we didn't have incident command. And so the only time you'd hear a chief say anything, if we pulled up and we had a big old 2-story rocking and rolling, the chief would call all the engines on the radio and said, bring your water with you. It means catch you a plug and lay into the fire. So we would have 4 attack engines. And if each engine pulled 2 lines or pulled a 2.5, and some of them pulled 2 1.5 we would overwhelm these fires. But it took, I mean, there were times we came out and you couldn't see asphalt from all the cotton on the ground. And
Wow.
They came to us and said what we were doing, this was our administration, they said what we were doing was overkill. And I want you to remember this word, overkill. And overnight, we transitioned from 4 attack engines to 1. One supply line, 1 attack engine. Now, the rule was, okay, now you're going to have 1 attack engine. And if you need more cross lays, more hand lines, we went to pigtails, and you could have your next engines break your line down and come until you filled all of your discharges. And I don't know that I ever saw us ever max out a pumper. Firemen, I don't want to say, but firemen are notoriously, they don't want to put hose on the ground.
No, they're efficient. That's the word, right?
Yeah. And so we did this in, say, 86. And the fires hadn't quite started changing yet, but they were fixing to. And in the late 80s, suddenly we noticed, hey, I got to back up here. Honestly, whenever they went to this first attack engine, what it was now the first engine went in on tank water and the next engine laid them a line. And where I was at Station 7, we were first in on most of our fires. So, hey, I liked it. I thought
Right.
it was a good idea, because in the mornings, our slab would be covered with hose to be washed. And all of a sudden, man, now we're not putting all the hose on the ground. We're just putting cross lays. And so it seemed good. And so the fire started changing in the late 80s. I promoted to captain in 91 and transferred right down the road to Station 25, making the same kind of fires, making fires with sevens. And but man, we started having close calls and bad things happen, and guys getting burnt. And we still didn't understand what was happening. And I had a buddy named Ruben Lopez. He was a Houston volunteer firefighter, and he rode with us at sevens. And he would ride with me at 25s, and he lived a couple miles away and made lots of fires with him. And December 6th, 1996, we made a house fire with the lady trapped, and Ruben got killed in a flashover. And what happened was we pulled up first in on engine 25, and our pump failed. We had a two-stage pump. And pressure relief valve stuck, and it blew both of our cross lays in two right as the house flashed over, and Ruben didn't make it out. And this was 10 years after they implemented in the old days, we'd have had so many lines on the ground. In the old days, we never had Maydays. Other departments had Maydays. Houston didn't have Maydays. We didn't have firefighters get lost. We had so many lines in the house. If a line blew in two, there were 7 more there. If you got lost, you were only one room away from a crew, and you say, man, where's engine 7's crew? They're next room over. And then so the pendulum swung from one extreme to the other overnight.
Right.
It took 10 years to reap what it brought on the Houston Fire Department. But today, hey, we went 105 years and never had a firefighter killed inside a burning building in Houston. Inside a burning building. We lost a lot of them for outside collapses, car, wrecks and heart attacks, but nobody inside a fire. And today we're at 14. I mean, Ruben got killed and it just never stopped. The fires changed, and for the most part, my department never changed anything. Today, I could go there, and there's still primarily one attack engine. Now, I was a captain at 46s, and we started by the time we buried, 8, 9 firemen, and this is all first arriving engine crews, except for the worst fire of our history, which was the Southwest Freeway fire, where we lost 4 all at once, and a 5th, Captain Bill Dowling, later on. That one, it killed the first and second arriving engines. And so, but they're still sitting there. You have to have a redundant system. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. So we implemented at my station 46, we looked at why all these firemen were getting killed. I mean, 5 of them were my friends. One of them used to drive me. And we looked at it, and we implemented our own SOPs separate and apart from. We went to backup lines, which are like interior RIT lines, and second engines getting water supply, and a separate RIT engine. It's crazy. You have your first in engine, and they're your RIT engine. They got a line coming off it. So if the first in engine, something goes wrong, but you lost your water for your RIT crew too. Right. So anyway, we made changes ourselves, and it's just no different to like on my truck. We started cutting bigger and bigger holes. I remember the first time Travis Quinn, who was almost always on saws in the old days, told me that, man, we have to start cutting bigger because it wasn't solving the problem. Our holes weren't. And he said, we're going to cut it as big as our beds, which were probably about 4 foot by 8 foot, and 7 foot. And when I left, we were always shooting for a 9 by 5. The amount of smoke these fires today produce is incredible compared to the old days. And so you have to stay ahead. But I guess to sum this all up, you can't get complacent and think that bad things are not going to happen. Because when they do, you zip them up in body bags, and you have these incredible parades. You set up aerial ladders and it's hey, ever since, I mean, that's what I've been called to do, is try to teach firemen how to stay alive. I teach rooftop safety and anything, hey, almost anything else you want, except, like I said, EMS or rescue. Um, but you can't get complacent, and you have to stay aware of how man, a wind change can be horrendous. Or pulling sealing on a pressurized attic behind an attack crew, horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, so we can never stop being a student of the profession, and things. As soon as you think you got a handle on construction, somebody's out there and they've already designed something that's quicker and easier and cheaper to build, and none of it makes it safer for firemen.
I love it. I love that for an opening diatribe, man. It was beautiful. Are you ready for the first questions coming at you from the audience?
Oh, come on.
This one's coming from Steve Mouch. And no, wait. I'm looking. Yeah, this is right in line with what you were talking about. In alignment with like Project Mayday data, in your opinion, was it the sheer number of people you had inside the building that provided the safety net for you, or was there other factors involved?
Are you talking about old days or new days?
The old days and the safety that was there.
Yeah, it was the fact that we literally, hey, the only thing the chief was ever concerned about was he never allowed anybody to go to the burn side. Everything had to be interior, unburned attack. And so we just literally beat those fires into submission. And so, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because, man, I hated those when the fires really got bad and you had a crowd. I hate to say that I ever left in a hurry, but I guarantee you, when my butt was burning, hey, I could knock some guys out of the way. But I'm sure maybe you've been in those. I hated a crowded bad fire, but
right.
If we had a handle on it and we're making headways, it was great. But man, and the ones that were always so bad were the ones you couldn't get vented well enough, and you had that super black smoke and that heat pushing you to the floor, and you can't see your hand in front of your face, and then it's all of a sudden, it's like, man, time to get out. That's back before we didn't get hoods till 86.
Okay.
And yeah, your ears, anyway. So that's a hard one to answer. It depends on the fire. Enough firemen to overwhelm it, but by gosh, I will say this: later on in my career, whenever we were only pumping, hey, I'd rather have fewer. I really didn't like a crowded fire later in my career. I wanted my crew and a backup crew and a search crew. I didn't want a whole bunch of people, depending on the size of the fire, of course.
Sure.
But residential, primary, say 2,000 square foot house, I didn't want a whole lot. I needed those crews in there. When I was on our truck, we were in there. We'd split our truck crew in the old days, and 2 went in for search, 2 to the roof, and but it's really dependent on the situation. But yeah, sitting there, that's a good question, because I'm sitting here running fires through my head, and later on, absolutely, there were times that we just said, "Hey, hold them out, keep them out, right. Don't crowd me in here," Yeah. So I don't. That may not have answered his question.
No, I think you're right there. I got one coming at you from Australia. Luke Stevenson. He wants to know, because this is kind of in this line with the same then and now type thing. He says, in your time in the fire service, what is the best change you have seen happen?
Air packs and hoods, and better gear. I'm sorry, again, maybe I'm too general there. You're wanting one. Hey, if we hadn't got air packs for every position, I would have retired as a Walmart greeter. I was not a smoke eater, man. I worked with some, but I couldn't do it, man. It was horrible. I loved the day when I would have an air pack. hoods were a huge, because other than that, we always had, man, you always had blister deers. We kept a big old jar of Silverdine cream in the ice box, and you come back for fires, you start slapping it on because of all the blisters on your neck and your ears. So when Captain Clifford Reed invented the hood, the Reed hood in Houston, I jumped on it.
Were you an early adopter of the Reed hood?
Was I what?
An early adopter?
Oh, I worked for him at the time at Station
Okay.
35 when he bought the first little $5 hood at a welding shop, and I bought it. And then his mom sewed. She hand sewed one. I bought it, and then I bought every up. Hey, I was a sissy. I'm sorry. Hey,
You're also the guinea pig. You were being tested. You were testing out the Reed hood.
Hey, it didn't take long to realize. In fact, I was at 35s. I had left sevens when I promoted, and I was at 35s. And when I went back to sevens driving the truck, I took a hood with me. And man, I took a lot of flack for it. Yeah, bring that hood. And we made same night, 2 rip snorters, one big old wood 2-story. And I mean, I was blessed. I worked with some studs. I wasn't one of them, so I just got sucked into their tailwind. But on this one night when we finally finished, I had my hood on, and when we got through, one of the studs come to me, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, "Where do you buy them hoods?" It was so much better than getting blistered. And you can think, and it was great. That there were probably, if we run the clock forward a little bit, I'd say the new hose, now the new injected liner hose, when they came out with the first 1.88 inside diameter hose, man, hey, it answered so many of my problems, man. I could take 1.75 and put I might offend some smoothbore guys here, but I would use an 1.25 smoothbore. Make sure I had an 1.25 ball valve and pump 220 psi on it and flow 325 and have maneuverability and kick some serious butt. So you couldn't do it with that liner, that your friction loss is too high. I mean, you could still flow good, but anyway, there were lots of changes. But I'm sorry. Do I ramble on a little?
I love it. No, you're good. What was the pushback like initially when the air packs came? You got to see those basically be introduced, yes?
Yeah, you mean, well, there wasn't a pushback at my station. The problem was there were only 2 assigned to an apparatus when I walked in the door as a rookie. And the rule was if one was broke, nobody wore it. Well, the mask always broke. That every time you'd go to tighten up your mask, it would pop off. And so we were always fighting fire without air packs. And I'm telling you, I was so blessed to go to sevens. That's a long story how that happened. I was blessed to go there because that carried me for 41 years. What those guys taught me. I actually thought they were crazy, but the first night at sevens, we made 2 good fires. And the first one, we got back about 3 a.m. And I knew right then that whatever drug those guys were on, I wanted some of it. They were ate up with it, man. I mean, they were passionate about it, and we had a great chief and great officers and great firefighters. And yeah, I need
people. Hey, vigilantes who are listening, or everybody is listening, I need timestamps because I've been listening. I've been listening to the stories, and I've written down 2, and I know I've already missed. So everybody, I'm counting on you to get the timestamps for me. Tyler Paulus has a good one for you, Cap. He says, "What are the changes you have seen in today's firefighters that concern you for the future?"
And I don't mean this in a negative way. I love them. The young guys are the future of the fire department. They are, but they come in handicapped. There's so little mechanical. Now, I'm not saying all of it. Hey, I would love it when they told me I'm getting a rookie from the country, from a ranch or a farm or from the military. But I mean, I had a 30-year-old rookie didn't know how to put a socket on an impact wrench, a square hole on a square peg. I had one didn't know, and never mopped a day in his life. And I was a captain on Engine 46 the day, I realized that I couldn't have a guy walk in the door out from the academy and start teaching him fire. I had to teach him life, teach him what a flathead and a Phillips head screwdriver was. And hey, I literally had 7 of them. One day we were going to wax the engine, and I said, hey, we're going to wax the apparatus. And I said, hey, I'm going to go over to the chauffeur side and start putting wax on. Somebody come behind me, take it off. And I finished waxing. Nobody showed up. I had my feelings hurt. So I walked around to the cabin side of the pumper, and I got 7 good. Hey, these guys today, one of them's a chief, and all of them are now captains, good guys, but they're standing around the can of wax, reading it. And I said, what are y'all doing? And hey, they said, we've never waxed anything in our life. And they had their cars waxed and their yards mowed, and they worked a fire department or 2 fire department jobs, and mechanical aptitude. That was probably my strong point. I grew up in the country. I mean, I knew what a chainsaw and an axe was before I was probably 12 years old. And but today it scares the heck out of me, because these guys will walk in and they've never used a power saw, and all of a sudden they say, go to the roof, cut a hole. And they've never walked on a roof. And now you put a power saw in their hand and 0 visibility on a pitched roof that they don't even know how to read if it's good or bad. And so it's not their fault, but it is their problem. And it's everybody's problem. They have to be able to be brought up to speed, because firefighting is still a blue collar job. And so you have to learn tools and how to use them. And wow, did I get way off track here?
No, brother, I love it, man. It's great, man. You answered the question, and like you said, it's not because they're bad people; it's the knowledge they're bringing into the job.
No, it's hey now,
or the lack of knowledge they're bringing into the job is a better way to phrase it, probably.
Yeah. Hey, now they're great whenever you need. Hey, like whenever I couldn't get my computer to work earlier, hey, I learned where to use them. I say, okay, hey, I'll chop the hole. You do my run records for me,
right?
Because I couldn't turn the computer on. So, but you still at some point you got to have mechanical aptitude and know how to use tools, and they get there. They do. There's still there's some good guys, and they're passionate about. I'm sure everyone watching you right now, they're all ate up with being great firefighters, and they will be, and they can be, and they are. But it's a harder transition than it used to be, because in the old days, every firefighter had some kind of a job building, on days off, they're framing houses, pouring concrete, doing something. And today, most everybody, very few of them go out and do some type of construction job. And building construction is that's the difference between living or dying, being able to read a building. So, yep.
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Taylor Shepard's coming at you right in your wheelhouse. He says, Cap, what would you tell a department that doesn't vertically ventilate? Not due to lack of manpower, but due to lack of understanding. What are some of the biggest benefits to cutting holes?
Whoo, man. The biggest benefit to cutting holes is you. First off, let me give. Hey, the rule of ventilation is that wherever the smoke goes, the fire is going to follow. Wherever the smoke goes, the fire is going to follow. And so the fire, smoke, and heat all want to do the same thing. They want to go up. And if you don't let them go up, they're going to the area of least resistance. So if you open that door, hey, they're coming. If you don't vent, now, hey, I came up, and again, I don't want to offend your smoothbore guys, but I came up using fog nozzles and used them. Never had anybody work on my crew. We didn't have fog nozzles. And we were taught early on, with a fog nozzle, we always vented opposite where we were going in. You had to, because you're gonna push steam and heat and fire ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
But we always had a truck crew going to the roof, and there were times that we were pinned down. It was so hot, no air packs. I came in, we lived on our belly until we got air packs, and then we got up on our knees, and when we got hoods, we started standing, and that had its drawbacks, I promise. Uh, but ventilation, if you pop the top on that, everything gets better. You let the, you cut your hole in the roof, and now you punch through, and everything starts feeding up. And so, if you were to see the conditions, and I'm going to just try to let me paint this for you. In the old days, we would literally, again, we'd have it, and that smoke is pumping down, and you go in and you're trying to breathe air off the floor about 2 inches. And it would get too hot, and the captain would say, "Hold up, let the truck crew get the hole cut." And you'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden that smoke started going up, and I mean it'd be quick, it'd be going up, and I mean like in about 5 seconds you could see the windowsill. And so now the captain say, "Let's go," and you got up on your knees and you got under that smoke, because wherever the smoke's at is where the heat's at, other than radiant heat. So when the smoke goes up, the heat goes up. And so then we would be able to move in, get to where the fire was at, put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and everything got good. And so whenever you cut that hole, things are going to get good inside. And it's no different than whenever a roof self-ventilates. And I don't want to offend any chiefs, because I'm sure none of them on here would ever do this. But in Houston, we'd be in there taking a beating, and all of a sudden that roof self-ventilated, and things got great inside. And they would start blowing air horns and ordering us to go defensive. And it's like, why? Because now they got a ball of fire shooting out a hole in the roof, and they're not understanding that interior fire smoke heat want to go up. It's no longer down there on us where it had been just prior. Now things are good. And leave us in here and let us get this thing done. Now if it's a big old, churches, man, that's another class. You got a big old open area, that's different. But houses, man, they're 144 square foot rooms, and it really. But anyway, so if the question about cutting holes, if you got, for whatever reason, if they don't believe in cutting holes, do you believe in using the fan? Do you believe in using positive pressure attack? Because it is, and I'm going to tell you, the day they brought fans out, I was a truck chauffeur, and all we did was cut holes, and they told us we were going to blow air into the fire. Never did it. 6 months we had the fan, never pulled it off once on lots of fires, not until I made captain. And when I made captain, it just so happened I started running with the guy that taught the class. And the first day I made a fire and he cranked the fan, I thought, what in the world just happened? I couldn't have run and caught the smoke. And so the rest of my career, I always let the fire dictate to me whether I needed a hole or where I was going to use a fan. But both of them are extremely effective. But you got to get that heat. You got to control the smoke and the heat and the fire. And if you can make the smoke go horizontally, you're going to make the heat and the fire go horizontally. And if you can't, and it wants to go vertically, that's always going to be your best option. But you need to be aware of being the rooftop safety, man. We've had lots of guys, the roofs today are not built like they used to be. And OSB, which is almost predominantly, at least down here in Houston, your decking material, and it will disintegrate with heat alone. So guys have got to learn how to read roofs and sound roofs, and so that they can get it done and get it done safely.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question. I don't even remember who asked, so thank you for it. There's no soft tosses. This one's a great one. I want to hear your take. Chris Nugent wants to know, how do you recommend dealing with a truck company that wants to roof, but a department/BC that is scared of the roof? No easy tosses, like I said.
Oh, hey, believe me, that's a tough question. I dealt with one of those guys, and I would pray to God whenever we were on a roof cutting a hole that fire didn't come out of my hole. Because the minute it did, he started going nuts and screaming and blowing air horns and ordering us off the roof and cruise out of the interior. And honestly, hey, that's a big problem for, I think, a lot of departments, because you got guys promote. They were never really good firefighters. They promote, and all of a sudden they're in charge, and they're not going to have you do something they didn't have or most of them won't have you do something that they didn't have the guts to do. So they come up with excuses. That is a, try to educate. Uh, Hey, I did a lot of praying. I'm telling you, because when that one chief, it's like I heard him coming. He'd be on my call, and it's like, oh man, please God, don't let fire come out that hole. At least give us time to get off the roof and get inside and he'd pull some ceiling or something, because he'd just go nuts and want everybody out of the house, and things no different. Like once you get that hole cut, things got better, and then I don't know. Hey, the same with the fan. I've wrote classes on all this stuff, and the fan on my class, I ripped chiefs for about 2 paragraphs because of the time we would crank the fan and everything got great, and then some chief saw say the fire's venting out the second floor window 4 foot. We cranked the fan, and now it's venting out 8 foot.
8 foot, yeah. Like,
now we got great visibility, no heat. And all of a sudden we get in there deep and they kick the darn fan off, and then things get instantly worse than they were to begin with. That, man, I wish I had a good, I don't, it's tough because those guys too, so many of them are narcissists that it's tough when you deal with upper management and they're not great firemen. It's tough. I was so lucky in my career. Not saying I didn't run with some of them, but mostly I never worked for any length of time with anybody who wasn't a great fireman. All of my chiefs were great firemen that I worked under. So, man, I don't know.
No, I can't. I'll let you off the hook, because that is the question that probably gets asked more than any, is how do you deal with a bad, inept, egotistical, narcissist, just that type of question. And if you come up with the answer, I promise you, I'll write the book. You just tell me what to write. We'll both be millionaires together.
Hey, I do know that whenever you go the next rank up, you get into them deputy ranks, some guys that you don't work under, but they show up on your fire. Hey, my chief hooker at 46s, he would tap the fire out and send them back, because when they showed up, they'd go nuts and they'd ruin our fires, and he assigned one. We made a big church fire one time, and he assigned one of those deputies to watch a tree that was on fire in the back of that church, and he spent the whole fire watching that tree. And yeah, that's a tough one to answer.
I've heard Mo talk about the hooker boys. So you were one of the hooker boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mo. We all worked for. I actually, that was Fred Hooker, and I worked for his brother Carl John when I came in as a rookie, and both great chiefs, and they really directed me in the direction we were going. So
awesome. I love it. So yeah, that's a tough question. I didn't mean to. No one has the answer for it. It's just, and if someone gets it, like I said, I'll write the book. We'll split the money. Chris Nugent is, Chris, that was a great question. Thank you. I was about to ask it again. It was so good. Hold on. Let me update. Nick Sabo coming at you. He says,
hey, Nick.
What are some, go ahead. I'm walking on you. He says, Cap, what are some indicators you look for on a roof for a no-go situation? Also, he says, nice elk in the background.
Wait, what did he say in the background?
Nice elk.
Oh, yeah. Nick's a big elk hunter.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, the indicators, number one, smoke pushing through the shingles. And I don't mean just a couple places smoke pushing through, because that could be a seam or whatever. But if you've got multiple spots that have smoke pushing through the shingles, that's a sign your decking is being compromised, burning away. That's what's going to hold you up, unless you can tightrope on a rafter, and I never could. So smoke pushing through the shingles is probably the number one, and the second is sags between your rafters. Now, sometimes you can make houses that the rafters are on 2-foot centers, and they got 3/8 plywood decking, and it'll sag when it's brand new.
Right.
But you have to read the roof. But if you got sags, and in fact, Nick sent me a picture years ago of a real good a fire he made where it had a real good indication of sagging between the rafters. But those are two. And can I elaborate here for a second?
Yeah, always. That's
I
what.
paid
Yes.
this to set
You
me
need
up
no.
there.
You need no permission. You elaborate to your heart's content.
Hey, we've had so many firemen up here in my neck of the woods fall in roofs in the past couple of years, and now every fire is videoed, and so all these guys are falling in roofs, and there's videos clearly showing the roofs are bad. There's guys standing on the ground, and the smoke. Now I understand you go up on that roof and you can't see your feet because of the smoke, but if there's that air gap, the guys on the ground can see underneath it. And so many of these videos, clearly the smoke is pushing through the shingles. And I'm sitting there looking at it after the fact going, don't step. And they step and they go in. Now, God has protected all of them except one in Houston. And I don't know that he's back at work. He got burned up worse than anybody in my whole career. And it was after I retired. But on his fire too, it clearly, the signs were there, and everybody on the fire ground ought to know what to look for. I got saved on a big church fire one time because again, we were assigned to go to the roof, cut a hole, and you couldn't see your feet. You couldn't see the decking. And I was sounding the roof, but my chauffeur, my driver from the ground, he could see the smoke coming through the shingles. And he hollered at us and hollered on the radio and got us pulled off the roof. And as soon as we got off the roof, I went inside to pull my crew out, and the dang thing caved in on us. I mean, we would have come all the way in from the roof. Now, granted, I used to be taller prior to that because I wore one of them big pieces of sheetrock from about 24 foot up in the air. But it would have been horrible for us if we'd have kept going and my chauffeur hadn't known what the signs were to get us off the roof. So that was a great question, Nick.
Love it. And great answer. And apparently a great elk in the background.
Oh, he got some better.
That's why he brought it up. He just wanted you to mention that. Stephen Kaiser coming at you from, again, down in Australia. We got back to back. What type of training do you have or use to increase firefighter knowledge of how to read a roof to increase their safety and efficiency?
I've got lots of pictures and lots of videos. And when I go and teach a class, first off, I talk about sounding and what tools to use to sound a roof. Because even in zero visibility, sounding is always your saving tool, because sounding, if you're using the right tool, it'll indicate you got bad decking. But it's hard to sit there and create a prop but it's easy to show the signs. There was a captain in Fresno, California, probably been over 10 years now, that fell in horrible video. But bless his heart, I mean, it didn't kill him, but it ruined his career. But all the signs, if he had been able to just do a 360 and look at the roof, because the video of that, from the perspective the video is taken, every sign is there not to step on that roof. Their smoke is just pushing through the shingles. And if you remember, he steps and goes right into solid fire. So you can watch videos. I hate to say that, but that's true. I mean, if I show you the signs and then you see it in real life, it's not going to lie to you. Hey, one thing I will say about Australia, they're south of the equator, right? So if you're using a fog nozzle, you gotta whip it counterclockwise.
Yeah, all the water spins the other direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're in America and you whip a fog nozzle counterclockwise and wonder why your hands are burning up, because you're pulling all that heat into the middle of that cone, brother. So some guys don't know that. They learn the hard way.
They're gonna take it as gospel now, and that'll be Luke Stevenson, also from, like I said, twofer, another one coming from down under. Do you think that the chasm between the blue collar needs for an on the ground firefighter and the white collar needs of the modern officer is a barrier to helping bring experience into the management side?
Can you phrase that again?
Do you think that the needs of the blue collar for on the fire ground
Yeah.
is keeping people and the white collar needs of the officer, all the like you said, the computer management stuff and all the other stuff that you have to move up? Do you think that's the barrier to helping bring that firefighting knowledge to the management side?
I I don't think so. I think what the barrier is, and do you know what the 95-5 rule is?
Is it like the Pareto principle, or go ahead, I'll listen.
The 95-5 rule: 5% of any profession is passionate about what they do.
Okay.
5%. 95% are there to collect a paycheck. Now, this doesn't apply to politicians or lawyers. It's minuscule there
Okay.
about being passionate. But so what happens, the higher up you go, it's like nobody watching your show is a 95%. They're all passionate. A 95%er, he's the guy that can operate a remote control behind his back with his eyes closed, but he can't tell you where the cross lay, what nozzle he got on the cross lay. And so the higher you go, it gets worse and worse. And I'll be honest, until Mo got up in his position in Houston, man, it was pretty much 95%ers. It was guys that were there because it's a appointed position, and they're not firefighters at heart. I was in Wichita, Kansas, and it was totally the opposite. And I'm telling you, I spent 4 days there with those guys, and they're small enough department that their upper echelon, their upper management are the 5%ers. They're great firefighters. And it's unreal how it rolls downhill. I mean, those guys, every one I met was ate up with being a great firefighter. And so a smaller department can persevere in spite of, but something like Houston, Mo's got his work cut out for him. That's
Sure.
like trying to turn a giant freighter with no rudder, but I'll have to look at Mo. Hey, Mo's great. He was a great firefighter. He was a great chief. He's going to be a great officer, assistant chief. But not everybody's cut out for it. And if they weren't great firefighters, they're not going to improve the department when they get up there of a higher rank. It's just the opposite. They shoot you in the foot. They do everything they can to keep you from doing anything that would make them look bad. The guys that would never go to a roof, cut a hole, they don't believe in going to the roof, cut a hole when they're in position of dictating that. And I think that was a question earlier, and probably one of the reasons that young man asked the question about. If they didn't have the intestinal fortitude to get up on those roofs, well, they don't want to now all of a sudden start, saying, hey, we're going to go cut a hole because somebody's going to call them out and say, hey, well, you never did it when you were on a truck. But don't do as I say do, but do as I do. It doesn't fly very well with firefighters. So I don't know. Man, I'm not having many good answers for these.
You're having some great answers, brother. You do not sell yourself short. This has been amazing so far. So thank you for sharing it. I love this one. This one's coming from John Velez. He's down there in Texas. He says, what were some of your most memorable fires in Houston, and were there any major lessons learned from them? That's a very broad question, so you can go whatever direction you want.
Man, I'll tell you, one of them, I had two 30-year-old rookies at the same time. And in Houston, we have an apartment lay. It's made out of 300 foot of 3-inch hose, got a manifold on the end. And as part of their rookie training, we had to train them on pulling the apartment lay. You got to train them on everything they got to do. And it was 8 o'clock at night. And I actually had my hand on the apartment lay saying, hey, guys, we're fixing to pull this apartment lay. And the booper went off. We caught a run. And when I got up in the cab, I looked at that screen. And it was an old folks home, a 3-story nursing home. We'd waited for 20 years to burn, no fire protection system, had non-ambulatory people all over, and it never been burning. But I looked at that screen and I looked back at my rookies and I said, hey, rookie, this has the potential to be the worst fire of your entire career. Hey, two lessons here. The first engine 55, went on location with light smoke. Well, brother, 5 minutes later, we're pulling the apartment lay for the first time for real. And when we popped the door on the second floor, hey, it was zero visibility. And hey, it was time to put your balls in a dump truck, brother. We had to go 200 foot down that hallway in zero visibility. I had those two rookies. Now, one of them, he didn't stay in the fire department. The other one just made captain.
Nice.
His name's Roderick Taylor, and those rookies followed me down that hallway, and our line was just barely able to reach that apartment, but we had trapped old people all over this. They evacuated 170 something and rescued 13 off balconies, but it was pretty neat because once we knocked the fire down, I'd kick the door in thinking, man, we're fixing to make a rescue. And my crews would be carrying old people on their backs down the ladder off the balcony. And now I will say this, my rookies, they're young and I was old and didn't get excited anymore. I knew what we were up against. And so they burned their bottles out pretty quick. So I had to send them down to get a bottle change. And when they came back up, a third firefighter off the 55's crew came up with them. And I pulled rank on him. I said, I was out of air by that time. And I told him, I said, here, Podge, you take my pack down and get it changed. Give me yours. And I took my rookies in and we finished doing searches. But what we learned from that was that you never know when the booper's going to go off and call for you to know everything that you should have known. And we learned that them rookies can do the job if you just explain it to them. Hey, they deployed the apartment lay up them stairs trouble free, and they had never literally pulled it off the pumper up till that time. And I'll say this about Roderick Taylor, man. The next day, we were talking about the fire. I mean, it was a memorable fire because everything went good. Nobody got hurt. Nobody. But Roderick told me the next day. He said, "Hey, Captain," he said, "when we opened that door," he said, "that was the most scared I've been in my entire life." And I thought, man, I don't know if I can say the most scared I've been in my entire life, that I kept putting one foot ahead of the other. Now, we were crawling, but he never stopped. I mean, he followed me all the way down that hallway. And I'm sure, I don't remember, but I'm sure I put him up on the nozzle, him or the other rookie. I wasn't a nozzle hog. I firmly believed, now I take it if I had to, but I was firmly believing backing up your guys, teaching them. And, but I was always impressed that the most scared he'd been in his entire life, he didn't run. Because I think probably the most scared I've been in my life, I might have run. I can't promise you I didn't. So, but yeah, he turned into a good hand. But we learned that all that drilling pays off. All them throwing ladders pays off. All that pulling hose pays off. And we also learned that light smoke is only the tip of the iceberg, brother. Because when they popped that door, it was on.
I love it. I could listen to old war stories all day long. Cody Simon says, Cap, first of all, thank you for everything you have done for so many of us. Can you talk about the kinds of things you are looking at when you visit a fire station that tell you about the crew?
Woo, baby, Cody. Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I look at is that hose rack. Hey, I look at that hose rack. If it's disorganized and all laid out, I say, oh, man. I look at the floors. Now, I look at the apparatus. I went to visit a fire station. Well, I won't tell you where, but it was way down in South Texas because they had a 200 and something foot tower, and it was the only one in Texas. And I went to go look at it, and I walked in that station, and before I ever even met a fireman, I turned around and left. I said, those guys don't have anything at all in common with me and the guys I work with.
Wow.
But yeah, I look at cross lays. Hey, Cody, y'all passed with flying colors, brother. Hey, those guys are some studs right there, Cody. That's 7's B shift.
Okay.
Yep.
Love it. I love it. Chris Nugent is asking, Cap, what has helped you keep the passion for all these years?
Man, the love of the job. I mean, um, other than burying firefighters, man, I absolutely loved it. I um, I don't know how can you not have passion. And honestly, uh, I think I stated earlier the first night I was at the station, we made two good fires, and I didn't. Hey, honestly, I didn't know why I got in the fire department. I was 21-year-old punk kid, and I was tired of turning wrenches for a living, and I got in, and but I knew that first night, whatever those guys had, I wanted some of it. And I was so blessed, man. Those guys, they rode me hard and made me learn and taught me stuff that I'm telling you carried me my entire career. I mean, hey, we got run out of fires whenever our hose busted or burning too, uh, but I practiced the same thing my captains taught me that first uh, time I was there as a rookie, and we practiced it and did it our whole career. I like Cody that was just on there. That hey, they're pumping high pressure, flowing 220 and kicking some serious fire butt all the time at sevens. All them guys over there at sevens, some solid guys. So um, it just how can you not be passionate about it? I don't know. Hey, when people's lives are, it's people's lives are hanging in the balance, and it's not just, man, I'd like to say that we never lost a firefighter, and we hadn't until '96. But I don't know how I could not spend my time trying to make firefighters better. I mean, I rode it out for 41 years, and I left just in the nick of time because I didn't want them young guys having to carry me. But I can still teach, pass on experience and maybe a little wisdom. Um, and make guys better. Hey, I love firemen. I'm still absolutely amazed when I watch y'all in action. It blows my mind how y'all get it done in zero visibility and high heat. And if you are doing it in zero visibility and high heat, somebody needs to cut a hole in that roof or crank a fan. Uh, but uh, but I know how it is, and but I'm just of any profession in the world, man. Firemen just amaze me, and the passion for it. All you guys out there that spending your own time and money trying to get better, and how can you not be part of it? I mean, I just can't imagine any point in as long as I got a breath of life in me, that I wouldn't be passionate about the fire service. I may be a civilian now, but man, I'm proud to say that one day I actually walked with some of those guys, and worked with them.
That's awesome. I now Isaac B asked this question, and I've heard Mo call it a booper. Now I've heard you call it a booper. Is that a Houston jargon? Is that a regional thing, or is there a story behind why it's a booper?
I never worked anywhere but Houston, so I don't know where it get. Hey, that's what we called it. But it's like I'll talk about bull pine someplace, and they never heard it. Hey, at one point, I thought the whole country was framed out of bull pine, and because man, hey, do you know what bull pine is?
I mean, it's some sort of rough on pine board. I'm imagining, but
It's old growth pine.
okay,
You have boards that were cut out of trees that were 200, 400 years old, and it's loaded with sap. And when it heats up, it off
okay.
gases and burns like gasoline. And brother, there nothing smells as good as bull pine burning, and nothing burns as good. I mean, it's like gasoline poured in them houses, and they're solid. They're shiplapping, so they didn't collapse. And we'd burned some of them sick. We had one off St. Emmanuel and Webster over in Third Ward. We burned 6 times. Back then, we had only 3 shifts, and so each shift literally burned it twice. And my shift burned it the last time. And they brought a track hoe out, and the track hoe couldn't hardly tear it down. But bull pine is hard, solid, heavy lumber. You can lay it outside and it won't ever rot because all that turpentine, that sap in it. But I thought the whole country was framed out of it. And I went to San Francisco with my wife, and it's framed in redwood. And it's like, man, where's the bull pine? So,
Right
hey, I
on.
tell you, them old boys in San Francisco, I couldn't have hung. Those guys got those wood ladders and all that terrain, that different construction and all that. Those guys have to be tough. So,
No doubt about it, man. Firefighting is definitely regional. A
yes, it
lot,
is.
a
Yes,
lot of it is alike and so much different.
yeah.
Um, I like it. I'm looking for one or two more here as we're wrapping up. Kyle Piverall says, Cap, with all your years of experience, what would you tell a junior guy from the firehouse to the fireground? Very broad, but one piece of advice you'd give a junior guy?
Oh, the first thing I'm going to tell you is defog your mask. Hey, you can use dish soap. It's readily available. One small drop inside and outside. You spread it around with your fingers, let it dry. It doesn't take but about 30 seconds. Then you buff it out with nothing but fingers. On the outside, you can use your hand. But hey, I just taught a class, and I had a lieutenant up in North Texas that 25 years in and never heard about defogging his mask. And he said, man, I always thought there had to be some way you could see. So when your mask fogs up, you're operating blind. And defogging on the outside, when you're in there where they're fighting fire, that steam doesn't condensate on your mask. So you don't have to be using one of your two good hands to wipe it off. And so if there was one thing, and I lead off every single class I teach with teaching how to defog a mask as your number one. And then the fact that, can I go on?
Always, man. Absolutely.
Okay, then I'm going to tell you about how to survive on the fire ground.
Okay.
So if your mask will melt off your face in about 10 seconds. I mean, it may be 20, but if direct flame contact, there's a lot of variables there. But guys get misled. They run these tests and they put a mask in an oven or whatever, and they say a mask will last for 10 minutes at 450 degrees. Well, a mask may last 450 at 10 degrees, at 450 degrees for 10 minutes, but you won't. You can't. Once that heat comes through your gear, 450 degrees is unfriggin' bearable, and so you can't. So the mask may last in heat, but when we're talking about direct flame, and the reason I know this is I literally have gone every time I heard about a close call. I go as soon as things calm down. I go and talk to the people that thought they were going to die. And so I went and interviewed a rookie and 5 captains that all got caught in catastrophic fire events, survived, but their mask failed. Now, failed only a little bit. We got positive pressure air packs, so didn't lose their entire mask. But I asked them all the same question. How long was it before you knew your mask was failing? And now all 6 of them told me that first they smelt it, said it smelled like super glue. And then they would watch it start to separate. And the rookie told me 7 seconds. One captain told me 22. And then every other captain told me about 10. So I literally wrote an entire class called the 10-second rule based on 10 seconds. And it's about how to save 10 seconds. And man, I could talk for hours on that alone. But if you're caught in a catastrophic fire event, you really have 3 options. One of them is to get out. And if that requires you reading the coupling, I got to warn you guys, and I don't care how you read a coupling, but once you feel smooth, you don't have to feel anything else. These guys that are taught smooth, bump to the pump, I go around and I test guys, and I have 100% failure from guys that think they feel smooth, and then they think because it says bump, they have to, with a gloved hand, find and locate 2 bumps. Well, we're talking about you're covered up in fire. You got 10 seconds, live or die. What are you going to do? And all you got to feel is smooth. That it doesn't, nothing changes after the smooth. It's telling you you're going the right direction to go out. Hey, I know guys argue with me, and everybody's brains operate different. Obviously, we're going to have an election in November 5th that some people's brains are totally screwed up. So, But anyway, so the couplings, you got to keep that straight in your mind that smooth will lead you out. Okay, so one way is to get out, the other is to get the fire off of you. I don't want to go into that, but you better be pumping more water than you need, because when it happens, you're not going to have time to call for help. You're not going to have time to call and tell them to boost your pressure. You better have already figured out what you're going to do with the nozzle you got, or your only option then is to get out, or the third option, which is cover your mask. And I learned this from a firefighter in Beaumont, Texas, that survived a flashover in 2007 and burnt for over 2.5 minutes and laid on the floor, clenched his hands, and he said the left side of his mask still had flames, and he covered his mask with his arms. I didn't know at the time. I just heard that a firefighter had survived by covering his mask. So I started teaching my guys and other firefighters in Houston to cover with their hands. And my own captain, 2 weeks after we drilled, Captain Todd Paget got caught in a flashover and covered up in solid fire, covered his mask. It failed, but he fell through a back wall and survived. But he burned up both hands. They had to be totally grafted. Well, the way God works, I end up finding out who Cody Schroeder was, this firefighter in Beaumont, and I called him and talked to him, and he said, "Oh no, I didn't cover it with my hands. I was smarter than that." He didn't say that, but he clenched his hands. So what we teach now is that you clench your hands, if I may, and you cover your mask in the crook of your arm, and it'll cover your mask. Because once your mask fails, you're done, brother. Yeah. You can't inhale superheated gases. And so you're going back. If you're covered up in solid fire, you got three options: get out, get the fire off of you, or lay there and burn like Cody did and cover your mask up. Or like Captain Paget did, he covered his mask up with his hands, but he was still maneuverable, and he fell through a wall. So, but you got to keep that mask from failing, because the fourth option is a body bag, and none of us want it. Do I still have the green light?
Always. Yeah, go.
And let me talk about where to get air. Because today you can't go, like whenever I came in, they said, hey, even when we had an air pack, they said, hey, if you start running low on air or run out of air, you can take your regulator out and shove your mask into shag carpet and breathe through shag carpet. It's supposed to filter the carbon out. But today the carpet padding puts out hydrogen cyanide gas. So you guys don't have the option of going to the floor. That's where you always want to go if things go bad. You want to go to the floor. But you don't have the option of going there long term. And so you've got to have options. Well, one of them is the wall. If you've got a sheetrock wall, between every 16-inch set of studs, there's somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes worth of air trapped on a wall built out of 2x4s, 16-inch centers, 8 foot, depends on how fast you're breathing. But you have to drill on this. You have to. There's a guy that invented and sells, it used to be on firestore.com, a device you could unplug, and in his device you plugged in and it had a rubber hose, and you could just punch a hole like with a Halligan, with the pick on a Halligan, run that hose in there and breathe the air out of the wall. But I never had that. I did carry a rubber 18-inch, half-inch rubber hose, luckily never needed it. But without that, you've got to be able to unplug your regulator and first create a hole big enough that you can unplug your regulator and stick your mask in there and create a seal and breathe that air out of the wall. Well, the new Scott masks make it more difficult because of that. But you can still do it, but you got to practice it. Now, I always used my Halligan, the pick on my Halligan to do it, or my pick on my pickhead axe, depending on what. Of course, I didn't carry them both at the same time, but whichever I had. But you got to figure it out before you need it. And so the air in the wall, hey, there were 3 firefighters in the Meridian Plaza fire, I think back in '89 in Philadelphia, that died laying next to a sheetrock wall with air trapped on walls. But I didn't know about it back then, and they certainly didn't know about it. But if you know about it, it gives you options. And it's actually the better of all the 3 I'm fixing to give you. Because the sheetrock wall can allow you to sit there, calm down. You're not going to die. And I will tell you this: every one of these that I'm fixing to give you, it's best if you've already called your Mayday. It's best that you get them before you take your last breath of air. Because if you still have air in your tank, then you have options. But if you've already sucked the last breath of air, hey, panic. When you don't, and you've got to unplug in that smoke, panic is gonna kick in.
Yeah.
Panic will kill you, brother. And so if your vibra alert's going off now, today it goes off a long time before you're out of air. But anyway, hopefully everybody's sucked the bottle down completely and you kind of know what you got. But you need to do it while you still have air in your bottle because it gives you options in case something goes wrong. But you got the wall. A P trap underneath a residential sink in a city. It won't work in my house in the country because I have a septic system. I don't have a sewer treatment system. If you do it in my house, brother, you're probably going to die because of hydrogen sulfide and methane gas. So, but if you live in a city where they have a sewer treatment system, when you flush a toilet run, it goes somewhere else. But if you can access that P trap and do a lip lock on it, and it's hard to do, you have to practice. You're going to have to take your mask off. But you can do it on a residential, and you'll be breathing air out of that vent pipe that goes through the roof. Now, this has all been passed by our hazmat guys in Houston who passed it by their scientists, and they said, if your options were breathe today's smoke or breathe what I'm fixing to tell you, what I told you about the P trap and the wall, those are certainly better options. Now, one that's easier but sounds nastier is you mule kick a toilet off its base, and you can unplug your regulator and shove your mask right in that pipe. And I'm telling you, we probably kicked 20 off on drills, never, ever inhaled, never put my mask on one, but we practiced accessing it. The weirdest thing is I've never kicked a toilet off an abandoned apartment complex that I looked down in and saw anything nasty. I don't understand it, but God took care of us. He makes the inside look better than what I was expecting. Hey, now I will say this: Houston had a firefighter that just did this, and I heard about it, and I went to interview him because I thought, well, he'd been listening to some of my classes, and no, he hadn't. He never even heard of me. And so, hey, but what I asked him, I said, what did he do? He had a job on the side as a firefighter and got lost and running out of air, and he kicked the toilet off its base. And I said, how did you find out about this? He said, well, I used to frame houses for years. And he said, I always watch them plumbers run that plumbing. And I thought, man, that'd be a pretty good idea on how to get air. And it worked for him. So you got the toilet, you got the P trap underneath the sink, which today you can undo with your hand. You got the wall. And if you find a dryer, you can pull it out in that dryer vent. Now, I'll tell you two things. If I find a dryer, I'm probably going to keep chopping, most dryers are pretty close to an exterior wall. I'll tell you, if I chop in a wall and I hit insulation, I'm going to keep on chopping because most insulation, not all, most is on exterior walls. So those are ways to get air that maybe some of you didn't know about. Again, the wall is by far the best because, man, it gives you so many options. You can sit there, calm down, know that you and your crew are going to make it, and you can move down that wall and keep trying to find your exit, which I'd much rather be able to try to save myself than be sitting there waiting. Because on a P trap in a toilet, you're stuck. You're not going to move. That's right. Your air supply, and you got to stay there till somebody comes to get you. On a wall, I'd rather be in charge of trying to save myself than counting on somebody else. So, yeah. So anyway, I think that's all I got there.
That's beautiful, man. And people loved it. That was great. Great tips. Which takes me to one of my favorite parts. And I ask people, is there a book that you think firefighters should read? I'm a big reader, so I'm always looking for books. And I always ask this question.
Okay. Can I give you two?
You can give me as many as you'd like.
Okay. New York's Forcible Entry Manual, probably the most in-depth manual. San Francisco got a good one too, but New York's probably got the best. It's got stuff that I've never seen, but it covered everything that I had ever seen. So any building construction book would be good too. But I'll tell you, the best book that I ever read, and I'm still reading it every morning, and that's the Bible.
BIBL.
Hey, brother, that made me a better officer the last 10 years of my career, because I fought God tooth and nail for the first 30 because I had a filthy mouth and I wanted to be in charge. And when I finally submitted, man, my life got so much easier, and it made life so much easier on my great guys that I was blessed to work around. And I'm telling you, we talk about it today. The Holy Spirit would come all hours, day or night, and put in my ear what to train the guys on, and it was unreal. We would literally be in the middle of a class, and we'd catch that call, and over and over, or we'd finish the class, and then that night we'd use it, and so. Yeah. Hey, any of you guys that are on the fence, man, don't wait. My biggest regret is that I tried to run my own life, made my family and my great firefighters that I was blessed to work around, made their lives rough. So, hey, Jesus is the answer. There's no doubt about that, brother.
Right on. Hey, I'm not sure. I think it may be I don't think it is. I think someone else, surely in the 269, has said the Bible, maybe just in passing, or maybe not as ringing as an endorsement or a personal testimony, but I'm not sure. But New York Forcible Entry Manual, I think that's the first time it's been said as the book. So excellent. Very good. Which takes us to the 5 questions for firefighters. And the 5 questions for firefighters, these are, there's no wrong answer. There's only your opinions. And I pass out the points with the help of the audience to, so I guess, Dale Jenkins, are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
Yeah.
Here we go. Number 1, what is the skill that has carried you through your fire service career?
My work ethic. I grew up in the country and I always worked hard and never been afraid of it. That, if I could, 2 would probably my tools, knowledge of tools, because again, grew up with them in my hands. So
I think those go together. I think work ethic is a phenomenal answer. First of all, it's crazy that, I taught my kids, hey, if you just show up for work and never call in sick, you show up on time, never call in sick, you're pretty much employee of the year nowadays.
Yeah.
So if you have a work ethic, man, you're knocking it out of the park.
That's it.
But that's it, man. I love it. Number 1, max points. Easy answer right out the gates. Yeah. Glogoski said the whole episode has been max points. Thank you. Yeah. Sam said it. He said, thank you. Amazing questions tonight. Amazing questions you guys threw at Dale. All right. Number 2, it's Job Town. It is time. You are en route and responding. You have to think of the scene from Backdraft where he puts the cassette into that tape deck. What song are you playing while you're en route to that job?
Brother, I even tried to cheat, and I don't have one.
None.
Sorry. I tried to cheat, and if I told you one, I'd have been lying because I would have had to look it up.
Just not a music guy.
Not a music guy. No, sorry.
Hey, I mean, you're allowed to be not a music guy. It just doesn't get you max points.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, it won't be the first time I come out.
Hey, that's okay. I appreciate the honesty rather than making one up. I do appreciate it. Number 3, what is your favorite fire service tradition?
Brotherhood. The brotherhood, man. Yep.
Easy answer.
I don't know. That's a tradition, isn't it?
Oh yeah, brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I think the military, especially combat, might be close. You know what I'm saying? As far as the bond that's shared, but I don't know of another profession that it's baked into the cake with what we have to do, see, respond to, share, uptime, downtime, good time, bad time. You know what I'm saying? You know exactly what I'm saying. So absolutely.
And nothing builds brotherhood like trusting another guy with your life. And when you're going balls deep on them fires, and that guy's got your back and you got his, and those connections stay with you. They don't go away.
It's awesome. That's awesome. Number 4, this one is on the clock. You get 1 minute to answer. We had to put a clock on it because people would just keep on with honorable mentions. But you get 4 people to put on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service.
Ruben Lopez, Grady Burke, Jay Yonke, and Iron Bill Dowling. All 4 of those gave their lives for the fire service. 2 of them trying to save victims. So,
I don't know if Sam, what's the time on it?
I'm sorry.
10 seconds. There's some people are so fast they compete for the record. I don't know if you even knew that existed, but that was very, very fast, and that was an awesome Mount Rushmore. Max points, easy max points. The final question, the question that's been around since I first started asking them. There's heavy fire. What did you call it? A rip snorter? Rip snorter. Heavy fire, and there is searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in doing that VES?
This. First in vest, yeah.
Easy. Not even. I wondered because you spend a lot of time on engines, a lot of time on trucks. So
hey, I loved it, but I mean, I was 16 years on an engine and 18 on a truck, and I loved them both. But man, there is nothing like hey, and one of my buddies when I was a rookie taught me that. We bailed into one like that doing vests. And when we were done, he said, "Hey, don't you feel like Joe Bad Butt, you know?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Hey, them guys on the pumper, man, they had water. We were going in nothing. Had our hand tools, went in to do a search. And ever since then, yeah, they going in, yeah. It's all about that adrenaline rush and that opportunity, man. Hey, I witnessed some guys in Houston do some incredible vests when I was a safety officer. Chris Silman, 51s, and them, man, those guys, they're a bunch of good guys. There's great firemen all over the country, man. I'm just glad that I got an opportunity just to even talk to some of them. So
that is awesome. Great answer. And that officially, with that, makes it 4 for 5 with the honesty, 4 for 5 on the max points. And that officially puts 269 scraps in the books. My brother, Dale Jenkins, thank you for sharing and spending your evening with us. If someone wants to get a hold of you for more info, talk about classes or a tip you passed on, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I would say Messenger. I'm on Facebook just under Dale Jenkins, and just probably Messenger.
Perfect.
Have patience, though. I'm electronically challenged. I might have to get Corley to come figure out how to open Messenger for me. But
I'm the wrong person to ask. Anybody who knows the scrap knows I'm the wrong person when it comes to electronics. Patreon, go to patreon.com, join the Vigilantes. The Vigilantes, they're amazing. We have the Discord server. It's popping and lots going on there. We are constantly hanging out in there, and there's a lot going on. Also, one of the cool parts is you get to go to the after party where we get to go and roast Dale Jenkins for his 5 question answers, his different things throughout the night. So Sam is going to be posting that link. Cap has agreed to graciously come and hang out with us for the 20 minutes. You don't want to miss that. Coming up on the scrap, here we go. Next week on October 30th, so a little bit of a delay, but on Wednesday, October 30th, Frank Lieb is coming on with Billy Goldfeder, and it's going to be Mega Scrap Foxtrot. Mega Scrap Foxtrot, and they're going to be discussing their book, 30 Fires You Must Know. There's going to be other guests that come on that are from those 30 Fires You Must Know. I don't know which guests yet, but it's Mega Scrap Foxtrot. So I wanted to get that out there so you know about it. After that, it's Chief Mike Lombardo. So you got Dale Jenkins, the Mega Scrap Foxtrot, then Mike Lombardo. Boom, boom, boom. And then there's something called an election coming up in November, and that's right after Mike Lombardo. So there's something important in November. Mike Lombardo is going to be on the scrap. So hold on tight because the scrap is heading on down the rails. All right, enough jabbering for me. Let's get to the after party. Thank you once again, Dale Jenkins, for spending your evening with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Audience, you know how much I love you. You know how much I appreciate you coming in and sharing your evening with us and the guest, and most of all, for asking the amazing questions. You make the scrap magical. It does not happen without you. Thank you for tuning in live. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everyone, Stay safe out there.